Don't worry. Barbie, welcome. Barbie's my sister, and we haven't seen each other in ages. So anyway, really excited to have you all on here on this little chat about authenticity. So the way that I decided to do this was I had anticipated I would be sitting on the beach right now. I realized that probably wasn't going to be very practical. So I'm actually in my mother's bedroom right now. My kids are in the other room, and we're going to be going to the beach after this. But I wanted to do this because I just thought, we have this delusion that we can't do anything until we're sort of all sorted out and perfect and everything is just right. And life just isn't like that. I mean, for me, the thing that's made my life great is being willing to step outside my comfort zone and do things that are not necessarily easy or comfortable. I'm still letting people in, by the way. So I thought I'd stretch myself and do this. And one of the reasons I came upon this topic was also because my life has been led by choices that have come from my gut. I've had the good fortune to follow my heart in whatever career I've chosen. So that started out for me in the music business. I became a professional singer, really a risky career. I had a very, very world-class education, and then I went out into the world of pop singing. Then when that wasn't working for me, I started working with deaf people, and I thought, oh, this sounds good. So at the age of 40, I retrained again and became a teacher of the deaf. Then I started to tire of that because it was quite stressful and working in the public sector was difficult. And I decided to go into coaching. So at every turn, I chose things that I was authentically interested in. And I really do advocate this as a way of life. Of course, not everyone makes such a choice, but always underneath was the desire to expand and grow. And it served me really well. And that's an authentic desire. So let's talk a little bit about this authenticity. What does it mean to be authentic? And I'm not going to ask you to answer that question because I want you to get a chance to contribute a little bit more later. But for me, it means to be real, to be true to yourself, and to live your life with the awareness of who you are. Now, the awareness of who you are takes place on many different levels, doesn't it? It's not just the surface level of who you are. I'm Corey, I'm a coach, I live in London, but who you are and what is truly your life's purpose, and what is it that ignites you? What is it that gives your life meaning and purpose? And I think when you can identify that, it really is an amazing feeling. So sometimes what happens is, in the effort to develop our career and our relationships, we give up our authenticity. And I really do think that happens. And I know it happened to me in my relationship, which some of you who regularly come to my talks know a bit about. So I'll give you some examples. For example, maybe you go into a corporate job and you assume the posture of knowing what you're doing. But inside you have this awful imposter syndrome, and you're playing the role of someone confident when you really don't feel it. You muscle up. You're like, I've got this, because if you don't, you're worried you'll either be ostracized or found out. Okay, so many people are, and please know that I'm not judging it at all. I've never been in a corporate career, but I hear this from clients, and the inability to talk about what they're going through with the people who are in their environment is really detrimental to their happiness. Or to give you another example, you go into a new relationship and suddenly you morph into the person that you think the other person wants you to be. Now, this is something I put my hand up and say I have done. So for example, you don't like cooking, but suddenly you're studying your cookbooks because you think that the other person wants you to learn how to cook, right? So, oops, you've disappeared. So, because you don't want to look like a fool. So this is what I did in my 20-year marriage. And although there were many positive benefits to my relationship in my marriage, not least of which I have two beautiful grown young men, my sons, I really did lose sight of who I was. And some of you know my story, but in my case, it was shelving my music career, giving that up, shelving my practice of Buddhism in a desire to fit in with the person I thought my husband wanted me to be. Now, the upside of that is I've learned a lot, and I don't do that anymore. And that's not the way I live my life. The other positive benefit is that I can really talk to people who are not being authentic and people who are searching for what floats their boat, for what makes their life work, with a high degree of authority. So, you know, there is a silver lining, but I do wonder what my life would have been had I made different choices at a younger age. Or I'll give you another example where this authenticity can be an issue. So you go to visit an acquaintance and you're feeling a bit down, but you pretend everything's fine. I remember that's another one I used to do when my kids were really little. We had afternoon teas with these women, you know, we were all in it. We all had toddlers in the swimming class together, and we'd go to Jane's house for afternoon tea. And everyone was talking about how well little Johnny or little Susie did, you know, that they were the quickest one at you know, learning their how to say certain words or how to write their alphabet or recite their alphabet. And you're like, I'm the one who doesn't want to be left out. And I'm actually feeling really crappy. And I'm sitting there, you know, just smiling. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I feel really uncomfortable. I feel really depressed. I feel really lonely. I have these kids. I don't know what to do with them. I'm totally out of my comfort zone, but I'm going to pretend everything's okay, because it's shameful in some way when everything isn't okay. You know, that's not really, it took me a while to unlearn that pattern, and I still struggle with it. You know, that sort of like, I'm all right, everything's fine. Yeah, everything's fine when it's not. Or how many times has someone expressed an opinion and you nodded in agreement when you really didn't agree? So what about learning to agree disagreeably? I had an experience, it's just come to me, that I shudder when I think about it. I was on holiday in Norway, and it was around the time of the World Cup, and we'd made friends with a Dutch family, and suddenly one of the men went, oh yeah, the reason why our football team is so so violent is because we have so many Black people on the team. Like, and I didn't say anything. What the hell? That's insane, right? But believe me, I couldn't sleep that night when I thought of my friends, and I thought, hang on a minute, Corey, what, you know, like, why would you not? And it doesn't mean that I'm trying to force my opinion down his throat, but certainly you don't collude with something that you feel is wrong. And I think, you know, we live at a time right now when I think one of the great skills to learn is to authentically have your own opinion, and to authentically allow someone else to have their opinion, even when you disagree. I also had to go through that with my dad, who had very, very different political views to my own. And I had to realize that beneath that was our common humanity and our connection, and to cultivate a relationship with him, even though some of his opinions drove me crazy. But why does everyone have to have the same opinion? Well, they don't. And I think it's because we feel vulnerable. There's a concern that you might be rejected if you show how you're really feeling, whether it's in the work, the relationship, the friendship, the social context, it doesn't matter. You're wondering how your truth might be received. And there's a sense of shame that maybe you won't measure up. Maybe you won't measure up. And it would be embarrassing if you showed up as you. I hope that's none of you, but I know it's been me. I'm happy to own it. Or maybe you don't want to hurt other people's feelings, right? Now, I don't want to confuse this with a lack of manners. It doesn't mean that, you know, you go to someone's house and you don't like the food and you have to say, ew, your food's disgusting. You know, that's not what I'm talking about. But I am saying that if you are poised, authentic, and confident, there will always be a way to show up as yourself without offending other people. So anyway, all this shame and being who you are, you stop yourself from being you. And I think we can all think of times when that's happened. So you stop yourself from opening up, and your relationships become more superficial and distanced. And I'm going to talk about 3 reasons why this happens. And there are more, but we'll start here. So for those of you, there are quite a few of you here who are in the Elite Mentorship Forum. Some of you are in my group, which is fantastic. Thank you so much for showing up. This shows me the level of enthusiasm that people have for this kind of work, that a lot of people who are in my Tuesday night group are actually here because they're so keen to learn. So that's really exciting. So I run a program called the Elite Mentorship Forum, and we go into this a bit, and it's called Goop. Peter Sage is the chap who coined this, what's it called, an acronym? See, I'm being authentic here. I can't remember if it's called an acronym. So Goop is the good opinion of other people. Sorry, I'm just going to let someone in here. So the good opinion of other people is one of the reasons why we're sometimes not authentic. And this comes from a fear of not being good enough. But as Peter Sage says, you know, you were born and therefore you are a miracle because you won the lottery of getting to be born on this planet, and there are no accidents. So you are who you are for a reason. You shut up here as you with your unique, I'm going to say cocktail of quirks. Cocktail of quirks, how's that? Okay, someone just said he couldn't get in because of network connection. So yeah, there are no accidents. So that's number 1, your Goop, the good opinion of other people that you think you need to fit in. And I've given you a few examples of that in my own life. Number 2 is the fear of making mistakes. What if I get it wrong? This is another shame-based. A lot of this, all of this is really shame-based. And a great reference here is Brené Brown. She talks a lot about shame. So what if you get it wrong? What if you take a risk? So you'd rather just sort of hide your light under a bushel than get something wrong. And then number 3 is what Peter calls the curse of the white rabbit. Now, the curse of the white rabbit is, you know, when you have a gray, I think it's a, you know, is it a greyhound track and there's a rabbit and the dogs are chasing it, and someone, every time the dog gets nearer, is it a fox or a rabbit? I don't know. Anyway, the rabbit takes off and you never quite get there. So this is all about the things that you think you want and need in your life, that if you only had that, he gives the example of a Ferrari. I don't care about Ferraris, but if I only had that ideal partner, my life would be good. If only I had that relationship, that amount of money, that house, everything would be fine. If only, then you'll feel great. And this is the game of feel great when. When I have this thing, I will feel great. So what about coming from a place of wholeness? That you're already fine as you are. I am already what I seek. And we call this the game of feel great now. So I'm going to give you some suggestions, and then I'm going to open the floor, and we can have a chat about it, which I love. I really love it when people contribute, either by sharing what they're going through or things that have helped them transform. So the first thing is, you do need to know yourself, or at least to begin to know yourself. And that happens in the gaps, that happens in the silences, that can happen through things like meditation, taking a silent walk in the woods. Now, I know that a lot of people, when they go for a walk or a run, they have to have something going on in their ears being fed stuff, and that's great. That's got its place. But this is this opening up to the space and just being, opening up and knowing, you know, allowing your truth, which is going to be your truth, and it will likely be connected to universal truth. In fact, it will be, to come in. If there's no space, that can't happen, right? So that's the first suggestion. Then my second suggestion is take the risk of stepping outside the familiar, of not being like other people, of not being one of the gang, of not doing what everyone else is doing, and really finding your own way within that. So this is about giving yourself the opportunity to experience new things. So often we play it safe, don't we? I'm just thinking as I'm saying this, because I'm thinking for some people that will be authentically, they prefer safety, but that's it. This is about growing you. This is about growing the inner you. And then number three, and for me, this is a huge one, the willingness to be vulnerable. So at root, you know, you need to be willing to show feelings appropriately, ask for help when you need it, take the risk that someone will reject your vulnerability, because that can happen. And if so, I would suggest that they maybe aren't the right person, but also being willing to take responsibility for what you feel. And this is at the core. So sharing it is not the same as dumping it. Sharing how you're feeling and expecting someone to do something about it is not the same as owning it. When you say how you truly feel, there's a level of authenticity there. And there's a great guy called Marshall Rosenberg who talks about nonviolent communication, and that's about when this happens, I feel this. You know, when you make fun of me, I feel really hurt, but you're still owning it. When you don't show up on time, I feel really disrespected. But at the end of the day, they're your feelings, so you need to take responsibility, and it takes practice. It's not easy, but the rewards are a growing sense of confidence, and I've definitely experienced this. Mainly in my case, through taking risks, through doing what's uncomfortable. Even being on this call for me is uncomfortable because there's always a racket going on in the back of my head. What if they don't understand what I'm saying? Or what if this is wrong? Or what if I look stupid? Or what if, you know, this is all pointless and blah, 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 you know, that kind of stuff. But the more I step out of my comfort zone and talk and be with you and share honestly and openly, the more my confidence grows. And, you know, I've had people say, oh, you're such a natural. Well, no, I'm not a natural. I've been working on this for a number of years. And I absolutely believe that if it's something that you want, you can develop it too. But it's just the willingness to get it wrong, make mistakes, be uncomfortable. The other reward is the capacity to develop deeper friendships and relationships. You know, my deepest relationships, my deepest friendships are the ones where, probably the ones where we've fallen out multiple times and been able to resolve it, been able to work through the difficulties through honestly and openly sharing feelings while taking responsibility. The third reward is the development of courage. And courage is no small asset to have in life. It's a superpower, isn't it? And then fourth and finally, and there are many others, and as I said, this is a real tip of the iceberg, is all these Monday night sessions, they're really just tasters in a sense. You help others by showing what's possible. So the more I break through my own limitations and become the most authentic version of myself, the most, I'm going to say, grown up version of myself, while still retaining a sense of playfulness and fun, I can show you that this is possible. And that is the greatest feeling in the world, I can tell you. So, as I said, this is just a taster. There is a whole module in the Elite Mentorship Forum, which is about authenticity. For those of you who are on here the first time, the Elite Mentorship Forum is a 6-month program, in depth, sort of unpacking what makes life work, who you are, who you're becoming, and what you really want your direction to be. In a nutshell, it's about raising global consciousness. And if that's something that interests you, I invite you to have a conversation with me and we can talk about it. There are different ways of doing this. The content is recorded content by Peter Sage. I will be hosting and training on it. And I'd love to, I mean, I love my current group. If a few of you want to say how you're feeling about it and how you're enjoying it, that would be amazing. So if you want to find out who you are, set yourself in the right direction. It's a great opportunity. So I invite you to explore that. So without further ado, I am going to open the floor to one of you 20 other people on here. And I'm dying to know your thoughts. So just put your hand up and let's have a little share. And I'm going to pause the recording. Barbie, hi. It's so nice to see you. We haven't seen each other in years. So I'm going to pause the recording so that nobody feels uncomfortable.